And I have a model that I guess has come from my experience that describes the demographics of how people feel about change. On one side of the organization, I find we have about 10 to 20% of the population. And these people I call the change champions. The change champions are looking for new ways to do it. They're looking for constant improvement. They're never satisfied. They always want to make it a little bit better. It's kind of like Chuck Yeager, the test pilot from the 50s. Chuck Yeager flew planes faster than the people who invented it thought were possible. He flew them faster than the engineers thought could be flown. These people are pushing the envelope, that's Chuck's term, pushing the envelope in terms of performance as much as they possibly can. On the other side of the organization, we have another population that I find is about the same size, 10 to 20%. And these people are called the hell no, we won't go. Now, as I'm doing a session, I can generally identify these people by looking at shoes. I can actually identify them because these folks have slant heels. And that's because they're being drugged into the future. And if you go back to your organizations, you look at if you have a linoleum floor, and you see those two black marks down the hallway, that's these folks right here. They have learned and have been taught that change is bad for them. Maybe their dad said, well, you need to watch when the people are trying to change things. It'll be bad for you. So they're taught, or they have learned someplace that the change is bad. It's not an accident they're there. So that's the 10 to 20%. Now the bulk of the people in the organization, the 40 to 60% of the people, are what I call the fence sitters. Now the fence sitters are not just as inactive as that term sounds. The fence sitters are looking at the change champions, and they're looking at the hell no, we won't go group. And they are making decisions about what they're going to do. And they're looking at the change champions and they're saying, are these people having fun? Are they being rewarded by the organization? Are they learning things that are valuable to them? If they believe that's true, they will adopt the change champion's position. If that occurs, then what we end up with is real organizational change. Now, they could go either way. If they adopt the hell no, we won't go group's philosophy, then what we have is what some people call flavor of the month. And I will have to tell you, most of us, I believe, tend to reside in one of these camps. But I have found myself in all three of the camps. I can tell you stories where I was definitely right down here. My black heel marks were all the way out of my office one time. So we find that people will go, depending on the change, maybe in any category. But our tendency and our view of life tends to put us one place or another. One other thing in terms of this is I find that the top leaders of the organization, if a change is slapping that person in the face, what do? What does he or she do? When the change is coming, they know it's going to be there. And how might they prepare for it? Well, not the good ones don't. But yes, some leaders do get defensive and they generally fail, eventually, if that's true. Okay, they bring some other people with good ideas around and they talk about it. They say, here's the threat. What can we do? Who do we need involved? They have a dialogue and they talk about it. And then they talk about it. And then they talk about it, don't they? And then they do something. That's not bad. I'm not saying that's bad. They plan it. They analyze it. They do something about it. And then they come back to the rest of the organization and say, make it so, number one. Do it. And they don't talk about it that much. You know why? Because we don't have time to. Well, I say you don't have time not to. If this change is important, you've got to have dialogue with people. Because remember the pig? You don't want to get into pig pushing. Doesn't work. So that's, I think, something that's very important to realize. You've got to have the dialogue with people. If it makes sense to you, it'll probably make sense to them. They will choose to change. That's a time-consuming part of this whole thing.